the Shadow Transport Secretary, Labour MP Jim McMahon, who joins us. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. What did you make of the announcement, which, by the way, came rather later than we were expecting, suggesting quite a few wranglings going on behind the scenes in Whitehall? But what did you make of the announcement?
I think, first of all, the government needs to set out what their plan actually is, because it does feel as though they're going from one extreme to another. They're going from one confused mess to another. And what that's done, it means that the aviation, the tourism industry is on its knees without the financial support that it needs. But it also means that people are, they just haven't got the confidence to book to destinations, not knowing if they're going to be on the list on arrival or not. I mean, we've seen that in Portugal, Julia, as you know, where people booked in good faith. But then, of course, Portugal found itself with higher infection rates, and the government took action that meant that people had to rush to return home or face quarantine.
Yeah, well, indeed it goes. It was just concerns over some other version of the Delta variant, and they still had, far lower infection rates than we had. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Is that people often, a lot of people's holidays they've got booked this summer are actually transferred from last summer when they weren't able to go away and things were, and they were cancelled. And a lot of people, of course, need weeks and weeks to get permission to organise shift patterns off with their other half and to get time off during the school holidays. We are in danger now of having maybe, if we're lucky, just 3 or 4 weeks of this entire summer, possibly 3 or 4 weeks of this entire year, when ordinary families, especially those with kids at school, can actually have a chance of getting a cheap package holiday to the sunshine, when it's those families who are the ones who've been out at work all this year, on the front line, doing the work, while lots of other people have been sat at home.
Yeah, this week there was a protest outside Parliament where tour operators, those in the airline industry, were trying to convince the government to get a plan in place. Of course, it didn't work in the end. But we heard devastating stories from tour operators where they were saying, look, because we keep on shunting holidays forward and forward and forward because the government haven't yet kind of set on their plan in a way that gives people confidence, they've still got to pay for workers to turn up to work. They're not furloughed. They have to be in work supporting travellers to change their arrangements. But of course, the money is not coming in.
Yeah.
I think the government could do far more, so it's okay to be critical, and we're going to do that because the government have given plenty of reason for us to do that.
Yeah,
but we need to also to offer a solution, and the solution's got to be for the government to come forward with a proper international vaccination passport that gives the confidence to other countries to allow British tourists in, because it's okay as having a green list on one side.
But we do already have that, and this is what the EU is planning, although Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron throwing spanners in the works over the idea that actually with the Indian variant spreading, that actually our country would be the one, they'll be opening up to America and to other European nations, but not to us. But the reality is, are you offering solutions when the Labour Party's official stance has been, unless it's changed today, but it has been, we shouldn't have an amber list at all, it should be red list pretty much, and maybe a few tiny countries on the green list that we're 100% sure about, but largely people shouldn't be encouraged to travel abroad. Which is it? Do you want people to travel or not?
Well, of course, it's not for us in opposition because we haven't seen the data or the scientific advice.
You can see the data, and the data is completely publicly available. I can look at it the same as you for other countries and this country. You can see the rate of number of tests, the positivity rate, the number of deaths, the number of hospitalizations. That data is all available.
But what we don't know, and Julia, what you don't know either, is what government has set as their criteria. So we don't know how the government is assessing country by country. We don't know what the government's assessment of direction of travel is.
That's irrelevant to what Labour's policy is, though.
No,
do you think people should be allowed to travel or not, double jabbed or not?
Yeah, we've been very clear that an international vaccination passport would free up the ability to travel to more destinations. Having a simplified list, it's either safe to go or it isn't safe to go. Having a country-by-country assessment so that we determine country-by-country the direction of travel. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? If you're booking a holiday in 2 to 3 weeks' time, have you got confidence that the country isn't heading in the wrong direction that might scupper your plans? I think all that is completely sensible. Also, we would lead on international cooperation. What is the government doing with America to open up that transatlantic route that is critical to our economy? What are they doing to reach international agreements so that when we do have a vaccination passport in place, that will be seen by other countries and accepted?
Can I say, I don't know what this fixation is with this international passport. We already have this. My parents were able to travel abroad a couple of weeks ago, both to France, and were able to get into the country with their vaccine, their double vaccine proof. On their apps, on their NHS apps. That already exists.
But at the moment, what there isn't is an agreement internationally, or even actually with key destinations, that says that the way that we present proof of vaccination will be accepted by the destination country, and that's critical to give consumer confidence. Now, some of this is about the health implications and the criteria on which countries are assessed, a lot of this is about consumer confidence and giving people the confidence that when they book, they can book in confidence knowing that their holiday will go ahead.
But then they're never going to be able to book in confidence, even in the whole of the next year, if we've got a government supported by the Labour opposition, which constantly says at the first sign of any cases going up, whether or not that leads to deaths or not, that we should go into some version of lockdown or delay lockdown. An awful lot of my listeners will feel that what you're saying is a little bit hypocritical. You know, demanding lockdowns, supporting the government extending the by 4 weeks to Freedom Day. You know, constantly saying we need more restrictions for earlier and longer. It's a little bit rich to now say, oh, but now we want people to travel. You don't really, do you?
To be clear, though, our position on lockdown was early. It certainly wasn't longer. The reason why we had longer lockdowns was because the government didn't go early.
Yeah,
it meant that the virus was deep, it was widespread, and that meant that we had to have a longer lockdown that, of course, affected our economy, affected people's lives, and it caused a lot of frustration in the British public. What we want to do is to accept that actually we need to learn to live with COVID. It'll be here for some time yet, but we need to do that in a safe and measured way based on the data.
Okay,
and the government not publishing that, of course, sets us all back.
Let me ask you about Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary. Front page of The Sun today. I'll hold it up for those on the camera. Hancock's affair with aid. Health Secretary's fleeing during COVID. Now, it may be none of your or my business what goes on in either of those two people's marriages. Both are married with children. But it is our business when she is an aide paid for by the taxpayer, appointed in some rather murky circumstances without the usual processes going on. She was brought in by him to the health department at 10 senior meetings. I'm not quite sure what her area of expertise is, from either Luther Pendragon or from the company which her husband founded, which Oliver Bonas. But during office hours, in his office, when we've got social distancing, what do you make of what these photographs of Hancock in a clinch with Gina Coladangelo?
If I make a serious point, if there are any conflicts of interest there, then they ought to be looked into, and he ought to be held to account if he's breached any ministerial code. But frankly, I am less bothered about the lives of one or two people and their personal life, and far more bothered that we've lost 128,000 lives to COVID, quite a number of which were at the hands of the government decisions. You know, we cannot forget the impact that this has had, and that Matt Hancock has had a very significant role to play in that. And it's about time that we brought forward that inquiry and that he was held to account for the decisions that he took.
All right, thank you very much, Jim McMahon.